If you think the Sega Genesis is done surprising you, our video today is about to prove you very wrong. Decades after its so-called retirement, developers are still squeezing new stories, mechanics, and ideas out of that 16-bit hardware like it never left the spotlight. No, these aren't museum pieces or tech demos, people. They are full-blooded games built by passionate people who clearly grew up with a controller in hand and something to prove. So, let's dive into 15 new Genesis homebrew titles that keep the console alive, loud, and wildly creative. Coloco DX. Okay, how do I say this? Basically, picture yourself lining up a landing that already feels wrong, knowing you still have to take off again. That's the loop Coloco DX locks you into. People tried cutting corners by using second-hand rockets, and now they are marooned deep inside cavern networks where nothing is built for safe travel. You are sent with a fragile rescue ship, launched from a base, tasked with grabbing one stranded commuter at a time and dragging them back out alive. The ship does not stop on command. It slides, drifts, and overshoots if you misjudge momentum. Narrow tunnels and uneven floors turn simple movement into a risk calculation. On easy difficulty, you can absorb a few collisions, which makes the job feel dangerous but survivable. Push the settings higher and the tone shifts fast. One crash wipes out the mission instantly. With 3 worlds and 10 stages each, the rescues escalate. By the end, success feels less like luck and more like earning control over a machine that never fully trusts you. Earthion. If you think the Genesis has shown you every trick it knows, Earthion rolls around and resets expectations. It's from Ancient, the studio that brought us timeless gems like Streets of Rage 2 and Beyond Oasis. Earthion puts you in the cockpit of an advanced combat craft as Earth hangs quietly below, already under threat from forces that feel massive, mechanical, and relentless. There's no mystery about your role here. You are Earth's forward line of defense, pushing out into hostile space and hostile worlds before these threats reach home. The stages feel like a campaign chapter. You start above the planet's atmosphere, then get dragged through lava-scorched worlds, ruined cities, bioorganic infestations, and the armored exterior of colossal war machines. Between battles, your ship visibly evolves. Weapon modules shift, shields strengthen, and upgrades earned from surviving boss encounters permanently reshape how your craft operates. Holding on to an adaptation pod before a boss fight becomes a gamble. Do you play it safe or push through for long-term power? Enemy pressure ramps up, environments grow more extreme, and by the final stretch, the ship you're flying barely resembles what launched at the beginning. It feels earned. Secret of the Four Winds. This one opens like a late-night anime episode you accidentally stayed up too long watching. You start as Inspector Henge, chasing a suspect through city streets, tires screeching, heart racing, until everything spills into an abandoned warehouse. That is where things break from hard reality. The suspect vanishes, a man dies in front of you, and the gun left behind turns out to be anything but ordinary. It can kill ghosts. From that moment on, Henge is pulled into a hidden war where darkness isn't just atmosphere. It's the enemy's greatest strength. The story moves through shadow-soaked districts, warehouses, and eerie urban spaces where spirits thrive in low light and weaken under illumination. As the mystery deepens, new playable characters join in, bringing different strengths into the investigation. Progress is framed as uncovering truths about the Four Winds, supernatural forces shaping the city from behind the scenes. Between shootouts, you solve small investigative beats, upgrade stats, and push deeper into territory that clearly does not want you there. It feels like a detective story slowly shallowed by the occult, and it never lets you forget how wrong everything has become. True Galactic Mission. Instead of ghosts and city streets, this one throws you straight into open space with alarms already blaring. The setup is clean and direct. A hostile alien force is spreading across star systems, and whatever alliance humanity has left is running out of time. You step in as an elite pilot sent to hit contested sectors hard, complete objectives fast, and keep the invasion from rolling any further inward. You jump into a combat zone, clear enemy squadrons, protect key targets, or tear down fortified positions before things spiral out of control. The story never slows you down with its long explanations. It lives inside transmissions, short cut-ins, and the steady escalation of threats. Early operations feel controlled, later ones feel desperate, with heavier resistance and overlapping objectives that suggest the war is slipping. Progress comes through ship upgrades that sharpen your firepower, shields, and handling rather than changing who you are. By the end, the narrative lands on endurance. Not saving the universe in one moment, but surviving mission after mission in a conflict that refuses to end cleanly. Mega Final Fight. You already know Metro City is rotten. This version just finally lets the Genesis step into that mess properly. The story is the same street-level nightmare that made the arcade legendary. Gangs have swallowed the city whole, and order has collapsed into fists, pipes, and alleyway ambushes. Hager isn't campaigning here. He's tearing through neighborhoods because the system already failed. Cody and Guy are not heroes chasing glory. They're cleaning streets that never stay clean for long. You'll love how fully that journey comes across and players can feel closer to the arcade vision. The crowding, the aggression, the sense that enemies are constantly pushing you from all sides. In Mega Mode, the narrative loosens up just enough to feel like an alternate take. Maki joins the chaos. Familiar faces behave slightly differently, and Metro City starts feeling less like a museum piece and more like a living brawl that refuses to sit still. It still plays out as a brutal march forward, one district at a time, one gang at a time. No speeches, no mercy. Just the slow reclaiming of a city that fights back at every step. Driftin Rage. From standard races to outright survival, Driftin Rage sells the idea that this championship keeps mutating, forcing you to adapt or get pushed off the road entirely. This one doesn't frame racing as a friendly tour around the world. It treats it like controlled chaos with a passport. Driftin Rage drops you into a globe-spanning competition where drivers, machines, and conditions all feel stacked against each other. You're not really just picking a car and flooring it. Somehow you are choosing a driver with strengths and flaws, pairing them with vehicles or bikes built for speed, defense, or control, and throwing that combo into environments that actively try to break your rhythm. Snow-choked mountain roads, rain-heavy highways, and sunburnt stretches of asphalt all demand different approaches. Some races are clean tests of pace, others spiral into aggression. Road Rage turns the track into a battleground with weapons. Time Attack adds roaming hazards like tornadoes and landslides that rewrite the course mid-run. Phantom Gear. This next game starts with a discovery that should have stayed buried. Deep in the ruins of a forgotten civilization, Dr. Valentine and engineer Agnes uncover an ancient artifact packed with more power than anyone truly understands. At first, it feels hopeful. The artifact fuels new technology meant to lift humanity forward. Then the past wakes up angry. A long-dormant phantom stirs, chaos spreads, and a militant group calling itself the Ocular Force decides that power like this shouldn't belong to them alone. Their assault on the laboratory changes everything. The artifact is fractured, a piece stolen, and Agnes is killed in the attack. What remains is her daughter, Josephine, suddenly left with no protection and no future. Valentine steps in, not just as a guardian, but as someone finishing what Agnes started. He builds Phantom Gear, a combat armor designed specifically for Josephine. From there, the journey becomes personal. You move through dangerous regions, uncover lost technology, and unlock new abilities tied directly to the armor. The upgrades feel like Josephine growing into something stronger, facing enemies born from a past that refuses to stay dead. ZPF. This one feels like being thrown into a war that doesn't care which universe you came from. ZPF drops you into a surreal campaign where fantasy realms, alien biomes, and raw sci-fi machinery bleed into each other without warning. You're not here to tour these worlds, you're surviving them. The stages push you forward through hostile skies packed with enemies that seem engineered to test reflexes, positioning, and nerve. All these areas introduce a new rule set. One moment you're tearing through arcane landscapes filled with unnatural creatures. The next you're dodging mechanical death traps or bioorganic monstrosities that feel ripped out of a nightmare. Boss encounters are not punctuation marks. They are full confrontations that reshape the pace of the flight and force you to relearn how to stay alive. Hidden routes, secret score opportunities, and risk-reward decisions turn every run into a personal challenge. By the end, ZPF feels less like a simple shooter and more like a gauntlet designed to see how far you can push yourself before the universe finally pushes back harder. Lethal Wedding. This game wastes no time pretending things are normal. Joanne is minutes away from getting married when a gang of armed clowns storms the ceremony and kidnaps her fiancé. No hesitation, no disbelief. She grabs a gun. Her future mother-in-law Shelley grabs another. That's the setup. From there, the story turns into a citywide rescue mission driven by rage, family loyalty, and pure chaos. Every level pushes the pair deeper into clown-controlled territory, fighting through waves of bizarre enemies while the tone constantly balances absurd humor with real stakes. Weapons are as unhinged as the situation. You're firing roses that explode on impact, you're launching weaponized rabbits, and whatnot. Between missions, the vow system frames the narrative as escalating desperation. You willingly accept harsher conditions, faster enemies, or single-hit survival in exchange for upgrades that might give you an edge next time. Cutscenes keep the focus on Joanne and Shelley's relationship, turning co-op into more than a convenience. It feels like a runaway wedding story spiraling further out of control, one reckless vow at a time. The Weave. Our next game simply assumes you already know that the world once ran on music, and then asks what happened after everyone stopped listening. The Weave takes place a century after the events of Loom, the classic graphic adventure game by Lucasfilms, in a setting where magic still exists but its meaning has shifted, faded, and fractured into new hands. You're stepping into its aftermath, dealing with guilds, traditions, and power structures shaped by choices made long before you arrive. Still in development, the story leans into quiet tension rather than danger. Progress comes from understanding people, uncovering forgotten knowledge, and learning how magic patterns function in a world that has moved on. Spells are musical phrases you unlock, remember, and combine, tying puzzle solving directly into the narrative. When conflict does appear, it takes the form of spell-based confrontations rather than reflex-driven action. Cinematic scenes push the plot forward, introducing new factions and locations that feel lived in and intentional. The goal is clear: finish the story in a weekend, absorb it, and walk away feeling like you read a carefully written fantasy novel that just happened to live on a Genesis cartridge. Chords. With this upcoming game, you're about to walk into a world that's still taking shape, and that sense of mystery is a big part of the draw. This upcoming experience centers on Akio, a hopeful musician aiming for his breakthrough at the World Battle of the Bands tournament, a worldwide spotlight that could finally give him credibility. At first glance, it plays like a familiar underdog tale. Look a little closer, though, and things start to feel wrong. A shadowy, corrupt group is manipulating events from behind the curtain, deciding winners and molding careers long before the first note is played. The vibe channels late 80s cyberpunk energy in a big way. Glowing streets, dimly lit interiors, and striking character portraits carry much of the storytelling. Gameplay is shaping up to lean into traditional graphic adventure design. Progress comes through investigation, conversations, and puzzles rather than quick reflexes. Since it's still in early development, reactions are based on early previews, but the buzz so far has been positive. A lot of people are already sold on the art style and core idea alone. This is one we're keeping a close eye on. Chords feels like it has the potential to become something truly memorable once it finally releases. CopperStorm. This upcoming game is where you go into a version of Victorian London that has already tipped into disaster. The Blitzmark Empire is rolling across the world, and Britain is barely holding together under mechanical warfare and ironclad air power. You play as Jim Cooper, a decorated war hero turned rogue pilot, flying a patched-together car plane that looks like it should not survive a single battle, let alone a full campaign. The story will push you across Britain as the last line of resistance. Most of the time, you're fighting in the air, dodging enemy squadrons, tearing through steampunk war machines, and trying to slow an invasion that feels unstoppable. Then, things go wrong. When Jim is shot down, the flight does not end. He hits the ground running, scavenging weapons from the wreckage, blasting through enemy patrols with whatever he can find, from shotguns to unstable experimental tech. Make sure to check it out, as it's already available for pre-order. Affinity Sorrow. This story begins quietly, which makes what follows hit harder. Next is just a kid from Faye, a mountain-walked village cut off from the rest of the world, living an ordinary life with his mother and childhood friends. Then, the balance holding everything together starts to fail. A sealed power called the Quadra Novus is being drained. Animals turn violent, monsters surface, and something ancient begins pressing against reality from the other side. That something is the Empyreans, entities imprisoned in another dimension who are now finding a way back. Nex is forced to leave home, chasing answers he never wanted, and collecting magic stones tied directly to stopping a full collapse. Along the way, the story expands through companions who feel purpose-built for this crisis. Valeria hides dangerous magic. A druid understands what nature is losing. Others bring brute force, machines, alchemy, or secrets that complicate the truth. The entire game's journey is about watching Nex question why he was born now, why this burden found him, and whether fixing the damage will cost more than anyone expects. SovietBorgs. This world ended the moment the Cold War didn't. In SovietBorgs, history snaps in a very different direction when the USSR wins outright and turns the planet into a radioactive ruin. On the day the Berlin Wall should have fallen, an artificial intelligence called Tavarshish Prime wakes up, hijacks global networks, and triggers nuclear annihilation from inside capitalist silos themselves. What's left is a scorched earth flying the red flag, with only scattered mutant territories refusing liberation. That's where you come in. You control a squad of 3 SovietBorgs, cybernetic soldiers built to survive radiation and erase existence. They are sent into the wasteland to hunt down capitalist mutants, rogue factions, and grotesque bioexperiments clinging to the old world. The missions feel like state-approved extermination dressed up as heroism, dripping with satire and cold steel absurdity. Between top-down firefights, the narrative leans hard into parody. Propaganda slogans, over-the-top enemies, and massive mutant bosses turn every operation into dark comedy. SovietBorgs plays like a twisted victory lap through an alternate history where freedom lost, machines won, and ideology pulls the trigger first. You know, these games, they're not special just because they're squeezed into creaky old hardware. Nah, it's their fearless middle finger to playing it safe that hits different. Some push narrative harder than the Genesis ever did back in the day. Others chase pure arcade chaos, and a few do both at once. Together, they show that the Mega Drive isn't stuck in the past. It's still evolving. Even if one of these games ends up in your cartridge slot, then the homebrew scene has already done its job. That's all for now, and I'm Elijah, signing out, and I'll see you in the next one.